Okay, let's start. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islam and Liberty Network's Edraak webinar series. Today, the topic of our discussion is Sharia and religious freedom, the conflict and choice in today's Nigeria. Why has the implementation of Sharia in Nigeria remained elusive despite decades of advocacy? Join us as Dr. Kazeem Olaniyan explores Nigeria's historical journey with Sharia implementation, examining how the lack of absolute religious freedom has impacted the nation's path to peace and prosperity. From pre-colonial to post-independence periods, Dr. Olaniyan demonstrates how Sharia extends beyond a mere legal system to encompass a comprehensive code of conduct designed for human welfare. The discussion will critically analyze the ongoing challenges in harmonizing Sharia law with Nigeria's constitutional framework and why the quest for its full implementation continues to shape the nation's religious and legal landscape. This session will be moderated by the CEO of Islam and Liberty Network, Dr. Ali Salman. Before I proceed to introduce our speaker and for him to give his presentation, let me share a little bit about his background. Dr. Kazeem Olaniyan is based at the Department of Jurisprudence and International Law, the Faculty of Law, University of Ibadan. He was the head of department and has also served as the sub-dean of the faculty. He was the resource person, lead consultant in the justice sector and the rule of law for the preparation of the 20-year 2021-2041 development goal for the government of Oyo State, Nigeria. He served as the technical expert for the African Center for the Shared Development Capacity Building on Justice and Rule of Law. He is one of the lead resource persons to the Search for Common Ground, an international NGO with special interest in peaceful resolution of disputes bordering on freedom of religion and belief. His areas of interest extend to religious freedom, international human rights law, jurisprudence and legal theory, Islamic jurisprudence, international humanitarian law, criminology, and criminal justice system. He has several publications in these research areas. He is the immediate past national president of the Muslim Lawyers Association of Nigeria, or known briefly as MULAN. He is currently a visiting professor at the Crescent University, Abeokuta, Ogun State, Nigeria, and former dean of the College of Law, Fountain University, Osogbo, Osun State, Nigeria. Without further ado, I would like Dr. Kazeem to give his presentation on the topic of Sharia and religious freedom in Nigeria. Over to you, Dr. Kazeem.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of us. This is a presentation for this webinar. As the moderator has said, the topic is Sharia and religious freedom, the conflict and choice in today's Nigeria. In this presentation, I have divided the presentation into 7 different segments called the outline. Under these, I will have the introduction. I'll start with the introduction. I have the second one, which is Sharia, law of God and not of man. The third one is the quest for Sharia through history in Nigeria. And I've divided that to 3 different segments. One, the Sharia in the pre-colonial northern Nigeria, Sharia in the pre-colonial southwestern Nigeria, and Sharia in the pre-colonial southeastern Nigeria. Then number 4, I'll be discussing on Sharia during the colonial Nigeria. And number 5, the search for peace through the quest for religious freedom. And the 6th is Sharia in the post-independence Nigeria to date. And now I end the presentation with a conclusion. Now, the introductory aspect, which I start with. We all know that Sharia, which is otherwise known as Islamic law, in the Arabic name, which is a literal meaning, which means to follow a good path or to enter or to commence an action. That's the Arabic literal meaning. In law, we have several ways of interpreting a statute. We have the literal meaning of that statute. We have the symbolic meaning of the statute. Or we have what you call mischief meaning. What I've just given is just the literal meaning. That is ordinary meaning language or ordinary language meaning, either way. So Sharia is an Arabic word which means to follow a path to where, or to commence an action to where, an action to peace. The good path to follow towards peace or harmony. Sharia, which is an Arabic meaning, literally, as I said, means the way to a watering place. Water, we know, water cools the body. Water is a cooler for life. So if something connotes the meaning to move towards watering place, that means it's moving towards a cooling effect of that place. So Sharia not only means a path towards certain things, but towards maintaining and embracing peace and tranquility in one's life. It is a path not only leading to Allah, the Most High, but the path believed by all Muslims to be the path shown by Allah Himself, who is the Creator, through His messenger, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, some Islamic scholars have tried to, give some connotation, meaning to Sharia. For example, Professor Yasir Qadir is an Islamic scholar. He said that Sharia means a path that leads to where water is fetched. When water is fetched, it might mean that you are thirsty and you want to cool down. It means that you are sweating and you want to cool down. Those are the reasons for going to a watering place. And Professor Yasir Angela Qadri said Sharia means the way that leads to that path of watering or fetching water. He added that water, no doubt, is very significant in the life of every living thing. Every living soul needs water. There is one adage in our parlance here in the southwestern state. We say, water is life. You cannot be an enemy to water. You cannot be an enemy to water because water is life. And it's not possible for you to be an enemy to life. That is our own constitution of water. So again, Emir Ambali, define the word Sharia in a literal form, saying literally, meaning a straight path to the path that leads to the spring where water can be found. See him now. Ambali is saying that it is a question of going towards a place, following a straight path directly leading to the spring where water can be found. So if you need water and you need to cool down, you follow this straight path. If you need peace of mind, you need cool of mind, you need cool of life, you follow this path. Ambali said, inter alia, I quote, "It is called Sharia because it is comparable to the source of water in the sense that it is the way of life for man and food for him in the way that water is the source of life." Can you imagine? Again, a jurist, Justice Hamad Begori, is a retired justice of Supreme Court, also agree with the definition of this Sharia as the water of life. In its literal meaning, Sharia is depicted as the essence of life for the peace and prosperity of mankind. That is from a jurist. This is an explanation, elucidation of Sharia from a jurist of the Supreme Court, the highest court in Nigeria, saying that Sharia depicts the essence of life for the peace and prosperity of mankind. However, the word Sharia technically means the law of God. Having done with the literal meaning of Sharia, we're now coming to the technical meaning. And that technical meaning talks about Sharia meaning law of God and his path. So anybody following Sharia is just following the path as directed, as ordained by Almighty God. He said, God alone is the sovereign, and it is he who has the right to ordain a path for the guidance of mankind. Thus, it is only Sharia that empowers one and liberates man from servitude in order to be closer to God. See the way this jurist decided to describe Sharia. That look, if you want to be closer to God, to your Creator, if you want to be in obedience with the law of God, then you embrace Sharia. He said, I go on. This is the only reason why Muslims are obliged to strive for the actualization of that path in their life, and without which there is no other path. This is, of course, by Justice Hamad Begori. He said this in the year 2000 when he's still in the Supreme Court. Yes, again, in the word of one of our renowned Egyptian scholar, Mahmoud Shalut, he said Sharia means those institutions, I quote now, those institutions which Allah has ordained in full or in essence to guide the individual in his relationship to God. One, his fellow Muslim. Two, his fellow men. And three, the rest of the universe. So Sharia is not only regulating the affairs of man and God alone, it's also regulating the affairs between man and man, between man and his environment, between man and the entire universe, because it's a creation and ordained by Almighty God. So Sharia has been variously described by scholars as the canon law of the religion of Islam. And that's exactly why Sharia is codified. Sharia is written. For example, one of our Islamic scholars, Kayode Elesinla, who defined it as a way created by Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, leading to himself and shown to mankind. Also, Hassan Askari, in his book, Society and State in Islam, describes Sharia as the institutional protection, which enforces the values of liberty, equality, egalitarianism, and the rule of law. That's the entire human existence in justice, nothing more. Values of liberty, equality, egalitarianism, and the rule of law. What else? Nothing again. So if you want justice, if you want to escape from injustice, unfairness, inequitable, you embrace Sharia. So in that way, Muhammad Egar defines Sharia as the principle and laws which Allah reveals and which He requires all Muslims to adhere to strictly in all the dealings with mankind. And in the word of Shah Wali Hahab, he said Sharia is divine from and according to which people can be asked and called to account. It also embodies fundamental of Islamic morality, of social and criminal justice. It's all encompassing. In a nutshell, Sharia, which Islamic law means, is the law of God, designed by God and for the benefit of man. And as a matter of fact, it is the ideal code of conduct or pure way with wider scope and purpose that an ordinary legal system in the Western sense of the term. Islam or Islamic law, which is otherwise known as Sharia, seeks to regulate the relationship of man with God and man with man, and also man with the universe. This is the simple reason why the Sharia law cannot be separated from Islamic ethics. So when you now see that people got gathered together and said, no, we must canvass for Sharia. We want Sharia to rule our life. We want to live our life in the manner of Sharia. This is what they mean. Yes, we go to the second segment, which is Sharia, law of God and not of man. The fundamental principle on which Islamic law rests are that laws of Islam are not passed in a heated assembly by men in opposition with each other. It's not a National Assembly or House of Assembly or House of Representatives or representative of men. It is not a law like that. Who ardently desire the law for their interest. This law is that of ordained from God. The laws of Islam are firmly based upon the Sharia and are therefore in the interest of mankind as a whole, not even only Muslims. They are not the works of wearing politician, but a sober jurist who takes inspiration from God and God alone. In Islamic law, what is moral or religious is also legal, and what is legal must necessarily be moral and religious. By giving religious connotation to all acts that are necessary in life, Islamic law makes the law of man's life and activities religiously and socially meaningful. Under non-Islamic jurisdiction, law and morality may not necessarily interweave. According to Thomasian and Kant, that is Thomas Hobbes and Immanuel Kant, these are philosophers who have some writings in religious philosophy. They said law regulates the external relation of men, while morality governs their inner life and motivations. According to him, law concerns itself mainly with external manifestations of man's action. What about the principle of mens rea, that is guilty conscience or guilty intention, in determining punishment in matters of crime and tort? This is not the same way in Islam. Islam covers both external and internal wranglings of man. Therefore, Islamic law seeks to fill all vacuum in order to ensure justice. Hence, it looks beyond external manifestation of man's action. It also covers all aspects of human life, moral, religious, social, political, and economic aspects of man's existence. In essence, Sharia guides all activities engaged by man, as the verse of the Holy Quran talking about Sharia talks. He said, Sharia, that is the Holy Quran, chapter 4, verse 65, says, "But know by thy Lord, they cannot have faith until they make thee judge in all disputes among them, and until they found no resistance against the decision, but accept with full conviction." That is talking about Sharia in the Holy Quran, chapter 4, verse 65. It follows, therefore, that a Muslim must apply Islamic law not only to spiritual matters, but also to mundane affairs before he could be deemed to have faith and peace of mind. As the verse indicates, make thee judge in all dispute. In another verse, the Quran says that those who fail to judge by what Allah has revealed are not Muslim, but unbelievers. Quran chapter 5, verse 44 says, "If any do fail to judge by what Allah has revealed, they are unbelievers." Another verse, chapter of the same chapter 5, verse 55 says, "And if fail to judge by what Allah has revealed, they are wrongdoer." Yet, in the same chapter 5, verse 47, Allah says, "If any do fail to judge by what Allah has revealed, they are rebels." The Quran crowned it all by saying that do not seek after the judgment of ignorance, but who, for a people whose faith is assured, can give better judgment than Allah. That is Quran chapter 5, verse 50. So since the Islamic law is an integral part of religion of Islam, the practice of Islamic law dates back to, by thy Lord, they cannot have faith until they make thee judge for themselves. Now, the quest for Sharia through history. How has this advocacy, how has it begun in Nigeria? For whatever reason, Islam, we know that it came to Nigeria in 1085 CE century, during through Colonel Bonu. Colonel Bonu is an empire in Africa, in whole Africa, then during the reign of Malhum Jilmi, as early as 14th century. Ibn Battuta confirmed the existence of Sharia in some parts of northern Nigeria. Sharia, which is the legal code, was reinforced during the reign of Mai Idris Aluma. That Mai Idris Aluma was the emperor of old Mali Empire. It's not too far from the new Mali as a country now. Old Mali Empire. Idris Aluma, he reigned between 1570 and 1602 and set up Sharia courts. Mohammed Rumfa, who reigned from 1493 to 1499, also set up Sharia courts in Kano, what is now a present-day Kano. That is as far back as 14th century. When the Royal Niger Company came to explore northern Nigeria in the last quarter of 19th century, it met Sharia as a way of life of northern people. Yes, this is from Professor Omani Adewoye. He's a legal historian, one-time vice chancellor of the University of Ibadan. He said in his book, Legal Profession in Nigeria from 1865 to 1962, in one of the chapters titled Justice Without Wig or Gun, observed that Muslim judges, also known as Akali, Qadi, were administering Sharia law on the African native just as the wig and robes did in Europe. He said, and I quote, Mungo Park in his travails in the Western Sudan towards the end of 18th century found among the Malinke and the bank of Upper Niger professional advocates, as at that time, Nigeria has not emerged as Nigeria. We don't know that area as Nigeria. That is the meaning. So from the Malinke, the bank of Upper Niger, professional advocates or expander of the law who are allowed to appear and plead for plaintiffs and defendants, much in the same manner as counsel in law courts of Great Britain. The advocates were African Muslims who have made the laws of the Prophet their peculiar study. Mungo Park is reported in our history as the person who discovered Nigeria. Is the one who discovered Nigeria through exploration of River Niger. And he came for the purpose of establishing a commercial venture, a business outfit in Nigeria, and later become Niger area, because he explored around the Niger. And when he settled around the Niger, it was now referred to as Niger area, which becomes Nigeria that we know now through Mungo Park. So Mungo Park, obviously impressed by the professional skill and forensic finesse of these advocates, declared with enthusiastic gusto in the forensic qualification of procrastination and perplexing a cause. They are not always surpassed by the ablest pleader in Europe. That is Mungo Park, for you. This was quoted from Professor Omani Adewoye's book, The Legal Profession in Nigeria, from 1865 to 1962, at page 112. Now, the enthusiastic declaration of Mungo Park establishes the fact that legal profession was already flourishing in Nigeria before the advent of British, and the legal luminaries were no other people than the Muslim practicing the Islamic law in judicial matter. Qadi or learned judges were appointed to administer the Sharia, which is a body of Islamic law, both the civil and criminal. These judges sometimes seek the assistance of Mufti. Mufti are learned malams who assist the imam or assist the Qadi in the administration of justice under Sharia. So these are people who are deeply knowledgeable about the Sharia. I now talk about Sharia in the pre-colonial northern Nigeria. Now I've spoken about the coming of Mungo Park to explore. Is the one who discovered a place called Niger area. Now, there was nothing like northern Nigeria before him. There was nothing like southern Nigeria before him. He's the one who established a place called northern Nigeria, established a place called southern Nigeria, and the rest of them. So I say that the northern Nigeria, before the advent of colonialists, Mr. Michael J. Campbell, who is a British citizen, says this, that the Muslim kingdoms of northern Nigeria possess three great advantages over the indigenous tribal authorities of other parts of Nigeria. They possess a recognized and accepted taxation system, a judiciary that was separated from the executive, using professional judges, and experienced rulers who were adept at ruling and administering justice to a larger population. The early administrator of northern Nigeria were impressed with the ability with which the emirs rule their people. This is a statement from Michael Campbell, and it's also from Professor Adewaye's book. After the British domination had been sustained through the use of force, a treaty was signed by the Shehu of Borno, that is the northern state, now currently in Borno state, Umar bin Muhammad Al-Amin Al-Kanemi. This treaty smack of Islamic law. Reading in English, it was dated the 7th of Shawwal, 1267 AH, which is equivalent to 5th of August, 1851. Among other things, Shehu of Borno said, I quote, "We shall set down the stipulations and answer them accordingly to the principle of Sharia." He said this when they placed some principles, some go area, no go area before the Shehu of Borno, in order to be able to capture the Borno Empire then by the colonialists. He now said, yes, we will answer all questions and we will draw all stipulations only in the accordance of the principle of Islam. Because what history tells us was that they placed sale of alcohol before him, and he said, no, you cannot sell alcohol where the Sharia operates. This lent credence to the fact that in spite of the conquest of Nigeria by the British, Islamic law was still in full practice. That is why Henry Beth is another British citizen who was one of the district officers in Nigeria then during the colonialism. Henry Beth was warned not to bring alcohol to Hausa land. The whole of Hausa land has its first contact with Islam via trans-Saharan trade as early as 9th century and was actively agitated during the jihad with Madame Fodio when Sharia became fully entrenched. Yes, Sharia in the pre-colonial southwestern Nigeria. Islam was first introduced into Yoruba. The majority of those who are within the southwestern Nigeria are Yoruba. So we call it Yoruba land. So Sharia was first introduced to Yoruba land during the reign of King Mansa Musa of Mali in 1337 CE, that is 14th century. In the opinion of Sheikh Adam Ilori, that is one of the Islamic scholars, the name Islam and Muslim, which mean Imale, that is in Yoruba land, is a reference to the religion of Mali, because the religion of Mali is hard and very, very tough to copy. When they brought Islam to pray, to perform ablution, they will have to leave their trade because they must go to mosque and this and this and that. And their mode of dressing, they say, this kind of religion is tough. And the meaning of Imale is that the knowledge from Mali is very, very tough. That is the meaning in Yoruba land. According to him, the Yoruba initial understanding of the practice of Islam was predicated on their contact with Malian traders and Malian ambassadors who used to visit the capital city of Old Oyo Empire. Yes, in Yoruba land, Baba Kewu, that is of Old Oyo Empire, challenged Alaafin of Oyo, that is the traditional emperor of Old Oyo as a day, known as Alaafin Ajiboyede, for killing some Muslims on the death of his Alaafin's son. What they normally do is that when Alaafin's son died, they must kill some people to die with him in his honor. It is Islam that stopped this. The Alaafin later tendered a public apology for the unjust action. The effrontery of Baba Kewu to challenge the Alaafin was an indication that there were devout Muslim scholars in those days that fought for religious freedom and justice in the whole Oyo. So the quest for religious freedom has started as early as 14th century Nigeria. The first mosque in Old Oyo was built about 1550 AD. That's the official mosque to say this is the mosque, this is the prayer, and this is the masjid. And of course, this is where you should follow or face when you want to pray to Almighty Allah. In 50 AD, in the reign of Alaafin Ajiboyede, the Ketu, a town in Benin Republic now, had its first mosque in 1760. In the saying in Oyo State of Nigeria, it had its first mosque in 1770. The first Lagos mosque was built during the reign of Adele I in 1775. Idumagbo and Okunu Mosque, also in Lagos. Lagos used to be Nigerian capital of Nigerian state, but now it's Abuja. So these two mosques, the Idumagbo Mosque and Okunu Mosque, were built in 1776. These are period when there was never any colonialism in Nigeria. Why that of Tinubu was built in 1819. Oba Mahmoud Lamuye, who reigned from 1880 to 1906, instituted Sharia court in Iwo to adjudicate in both civil and criminal matters. In Ikinu, also in President of Osun State, Oba Oyewole had an Akali court, which was prescribed over by Malam Bako, a Sharia judge from Ilorin. Islamic court in Ede, incidentally, that is my hometown, that is my native town, Ede, was presided over by Qadi Siddiq during the reign of Oba Abibu Lagunju, the then Timi of Ede. The Akali, which is Grand Qadi, was from Ilorin. The judge was keeping the record of proceedings of his court in Arabic language up till 1913. That was also before colonialism. The religion of Islam and Sharia, the Islamic law, are warped and wept on the same fabric. As soon as anywhere there is Islam, there are also Muslims. Islamic law govern their life. In the saying up to today, there is a compound called Al-Khali's house. That is the house of the Grand Qadi. In Iwo, during the reign of Oba Abimbola, the son of Lamuye, Mr. Green was the district officer in Iwo then, was requested to appoint an Islamic judge. He appointed Qadi Muhammadu Awa, who served between 1916 to 1928. After him, he appointed Salman, who was appointed, to head the Sharia court after him. This action confirmed that the British, on their arrival in Nigeria, recognized the presence of Sharia court and qualities of its judges. They also recognized that Muslims had been well organized and had enjoyed peace and security under the Sharia law. Yes, one of the oldest newspaper in Nigeria is London Times. In 1886, testified that when Royal Niger Company reached the northern Nigeria in the 18th century, it found a well-organized system of justice based on the principle of Islamic jurisprudence. That paper reads, these people, that is Muslim, have their own laws, which is Sharia, and costumes, which are better adapted to their conditions than the complicated system of British jurisprudence. Quote unquote.
Dr. Kazeem,
Yes, sir.
In the interest of time, you can share some of your concluding thoughts, and then we continue the discussion of your paper during the Q&A session.
Okay.
What do you think? Okay.
So how many minutes do I
have? 5 minutes.
5 minutes, no problem.
Okay,
so we yes, it can be presented. So during the pre-colonial southeastern state, we have the presence of Sharia also, where people advocate for Sharia. Most of them, the presence of Sharia, the presence of mosque, the presence of Sharia court are all evident during the colonial period, both in the pre-colonial southwestern and pre-colonial southeastern. It's all embedded in my paper. Now, the quest for Sharia, the quest for this religious freedom started long time ago. That's religious freedom, because it started with the establishment of Kano Law School, Islamic law was replaced with English law in the South, and Muslims, in their own right, started agitating for Islamic law, for Sharia, to guide and direct their life as the ordained law of God. What did they do? They did not go to the street to fight. They did not wage war. They were writing letters, presenting speeches, send delegations to the colonial masters as at then, to be able to recognize, to be able to implore in them to recognize Sharia as the way of life. Now, during the independence, this particular quest still continued. As far back as 1972, there is this All Nigerian Judges Conference, which was held in Lagos. It agreed in its resolution 17 that a federal Sharia court be established as the final court of appeal with regard to all cases treated under Sharia law. The Constitutional Drafting Committee approved it in 1976 and set up and presented it before the military president, or the military head of state as at then. But unfortunately, the military president gave his assent to the decree, and the decree was established. But there was no implementation until that military president, General Murtala Mohammed, was overthrown in a coup, which brought military president Obasanjo. And when Obasanjo was to now implement that decree, he only endorsed the customary court of appeal. He did not endorse Sharia court of appeal. That was the beginning of the agitation after the independence. So, he now recommended the military president then recommended the establishment of a federal high court. Whereas the CDC, Constitutional Drafting Committee, has actually earlier on affirmed the fact that there is a need for Sharia court of appeal, which is going to be the highest court for the whole nation. Now, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as of today, which is a Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, also stated in section 272 of the Constitution that there shall be Sharia courts. Sharia Court of Appeal was established. That's section 272 of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria. States that, I want to quote now, states that, 275, state that under the creation of Sharia Court of Appeal of a state, he said, there shall be for any state that requires it a Sharia Court of Appeal for that state. And it goes on to talk about what Sharia Court of Appeal of a state should look like. The Constitution of Nigeria is the ground norm as we speak. It contains this provision, but up till now, this is 1999 that this has been there. Please, there's no Sharia Court of Appeal in any place in the southern Nigeria. All Sharia Court of Appeal we have are in the north. All the quests which has been on through advocacy, writing, and of course, sending delegates to Nigeria and to Nigerian leadership has not yielded fruit. The struggle still continues because Nigeria, just like I concluded in my paper, that Nigeria has majority Muslim. Nigeria is a majority Muslim country, and any citizen who desire to be ruled and be guided by Sharia should be permitted to in religious freedom. Sharia does not concern non-Muslims, but only Muslims. That is my conclusion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kazeem. That was a very interesting presentation, especially for someone like me who doesn't know so much about the history of Nigeria. And in preparation of this webinar, it gave me an opportunity to learn about the question of Sharia in this context and how unique and different it is for a lot of countries, and that you cannot necessarily compare and say there's so many similarities, but there's all these subtle nuances, and they're grounded in this colonial question as well. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Ali Salman, who will be the moderator for this discussion. Since we have small group, uh, you are welcome to ask your questions using your microphone. If you have any questions, just raise your hand so that you are allowed to speak. Yeah, but now let me just hand over to Dr. Ali.
Thank you, Noor. Thank you, Dr. Kazeem. That was a very in-depth presentation on the history of evolution of Sharia in Nigeria, and I thank you for that. I will quickly jump to my comments and leading from comments some questions for further discussion. While basing the discussion on your a very detailed present and insightful presentation. Um, you know, we understand as Muslims that Sharia is the word of God, and it has been transmitted to us in a language that we understand. So, without the language and without the messenger, without the book, of course, this communication could not have happened. But we also understand that we as human beings we also follow our respective languages, and therefore understanding of these commandments from the language perspective makes a difference. uh, there is also a view that the Sharia has also evolved, like as with the social norms, and since it is dynamic, and since it is able to provide guidelines on the contemporary and modern problems that we face in the society, therefore there should be some framework of evolution of Sharia. However, of course, this is a controversial topic, and many people would like to say that no, Sharia is static, and it is there, word cast in stone, and we don't like to open up for different interpretations. Therefore, different countries, different Muslim countries, sometimes impose a very restrictive understanding of jurisprudence. For instance, Malaysia follows a particular school of thought, and then its Sharia law, follows that school of thought.
So,
In Saudi Arabia, it can be different. In Pakistan, Nigeria, it can be
yes,
different. So,
yes.
but it affects because it has an impact on the how law is being made and what kind of regulations are enforced on at least Muslims. So that's sort of my first broad thought and question. And how do you like to comment on that before I move to other aspects, please?
Yes, should I respond to that
Please,
comment? Okay.
please.
Yes, well, I agree with you. Honestly, I agree with you that it's fundamentally a complex topic, especially one who is a researcher in Islamic jurisprudence. Islamic jurisprudence is very wide. Just like you said, there are four school of thought, four basic school of thought in Islamic jurisprudence. We have the Ambali school of thought, we have the Shafi school of thought, we have the Hanafi school of thought, and of course, we have the Maliki. Maliki is the one we follow in Nigeria. And to that extent is jurisprudence or jurisprudential travails guides majority of us in Nigeria. One way or the other, the Maliki school of thought does not say that Sharia. I mean, of course, the first schools are in agreement what exactly Sharia means to all Muslims, but in trying to apportion, or in trying to create the law itself has been amenable to the Nigerian citizens, we have some different opinion, different interpretations, and the rest of them. For instance, if you want to, the Sharia punishment or sanction for zina, it's only in the punishment that zina is divided into two. Under the Sharia itself, it is not. Zina is zina. But when it's now come to punishment, you now start talking about which one is adultery, the other one is fornication. And at the end of the day, the punishment apportioned to each of these, either as adultery or fornication, is different. It's not the same. So we have some different ideas, different opinion about Sharia and how it works. But the central theme, one very beautiful fact that is general, that is uniform to all of them, is that Sharia should rule the life of Muslim who is ready and question, to embrace the path of Almighty Allah, who is seeking a Jannah Firdaus in his way of life, or in his daily life, or in his way of life. I think that is, if I be able to satisfy.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you. This is very helpful. I mean, in the towards the very end of your presentation, you were talking about Sharia and also the law of land, and I would like to come to that in a moment, and because I think you would like to expand your thoughts on the harmony or contestation or conflict or tension between Sharia and federal law, in particularly Nigeria. Do you see that these two institutions are in harmony with each other, or there are conflicts? And if there are conflicts, then what is the conflict what is the conflict resolution mechanism? Which authority is able to adjudicate the matters, particularly from the constitutional perspective? Since you are an expert in the constitution and the law, I would like to know your thoughts on in such situation, please.
Yes, thank you very much. You see, addressing the area of conflict might not be as easy, but I will give you an insight into it. There are areas of conflict, and there are so many, and that is exactly why people are advocating for Sharia Court of Appeal, where we have Court of Appeal for the federal law, has some point. For example, now, one area of conflict is let's start from the smallest and the most common ones, which is marriage. The law of the country does not support a second marriage. Talk less of fourth, and talk less of third or the fourth. That is basic. It's one man, one wife. Go to court, go to the registry, and get certificate. But under the Islamic Sharia, a Muslim is entitled to 4 maximum, with some, of course, limitation and conditions. But when you now you meet all the conditions, you meet all the criteria, you now want to go for second marriage, then there is a provision in the criminal code. We call it bigamy. Bigamy means for you to have a certificated marriage, you should not have any other. You should not have any second marriage after that one, or else you committed a criminal offense and you are liable to be jailed, to be sent to prison, imprisonment. That is the sanction. Whereas it's not so in under Islamic law. So when you now it start appearing that in the law like that, where 2 or 3 laws, because in Nigeria we have pluralistic, legal system, pluralistic legal system. By that I mean that in existence there are more than one legal system existing side by side, co-joined. We have the Nigerian legal system, which has its own separate one. We have the Islamic legal system. We also have what you call received English law. Received English law is the law that is common in Britain, and of course the common law and equity, law of equity in London. We practice it here in Nigeria. And when you go to court, you can plead equitable relief, and you grant it. So these are areas. Just let me mention because of the time. This is one of the potent, and when you look at the marriage, there's nothing that affects marriage that will not affect divorce, that will not affect guardianship of children, that will not accept distribution of estates of people in marriage. So all these ones are very complicated, and they are source of constant conflict between the legal system that we have between the pluralistic legal system that we practice in Nigeria. I think for the purpose of time. So if you have any further question.
Yes, I do. So in that situation, does the Nigerian Parliament has any role, or is there a body which can help to resolve such conflicts? You gave an excellent example of this issue of marriage. I think this is an important example, and I'm wondering if there are any institutions which are there, and is there a role of a parliament? Because you see, one of the arguments has been in the 20th century reinterpretation of Islamic law. I'm recalling, the famous scholar from India, from undivided India, who died in 1938, Allama Muhammad Iqbal. You might have read his lectures, in which
Yes.
The reconstruction of religious thought in Islam. And in that lecture, one of his lectures, Dr. Iqbal maintains that the parliament has the role or the mandate of a mujtahid in the current modern era. So the kind of the responsibility of ijtihad, which was mandated with individual scholars of Islam, in his view, ought to be institutionalized. Um, I cannot say that it has happened, but it was his view, and of course, it had carried some weight in certain jurisdictions. But I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on this institution and role of parliament around this conflict.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Ali Salman. The parliament has role to play. I agree with you. And the role they need to play have been played. You see, in the formulation of laws in Nigeria, parliament, has that exclusive mandate because they are representative of the people. They go there to make laws. They are the one who expected to package what we have as constitution through the amendments and the rest of them. It is already there in the constitution, made by the same parliament, representative of the people, that Sharia Court of Appeal of a state, we have Sharia Court of a Federal Court of Appeal, and in that Federal Court of Appeal, what they have is that in the composition of the judges, there must be at least one learned in Islamic jurisprudence. At least one out of the three, Court of Appeal is made up of three panels. That must be one. It's already the constitution. But the question is that the leadership, are they implementing it? That's the question. So it's not a question of parliament. Parliament have done their own. Again, parliament said there must be a Sharia court of appeal of a state. That's the constitutional provision. And it's the constitution that even make the leader, or the president, or the chief justice. It is the constitution that make them there, that put them there, that appointed them to the position. But in a way that's okay, fine. That state that desire the customary court of Sharia court of appeal must desire it. And the people of Southwest is now saying, we desire it, please give it to us. It is that is the source of conflict. The parliament have put it there, they have canvassed it, and that's exactly why I said, as far back as 1972, the All Nigerian Conference, it is the preparation for the making of the 1979 constitution, and they did it. But after 79, we now have 1999 constitution, and it still stayed there that Sharia Court of Appeal should exist in the state. However, after the parliament, what next? The parliament has done their own. The assent and the promulgation of that particular law, which is the constitution, is already there. Now, but for the purposes of the fear, they want to turn Nigeria to Islamic State. They want to turn Nigeria to this and this and that and that. They want to Islamize everybody. No. In the north, where they have this Sharia Court of Appeal, in the north, where some courts uphold Sharia per se, there are Christians there. There are churches there. And they know that these churches have their own freedom. They enjoy their religious freedom to a very large extent. But in the Southwest, they now say, no, it is only in the north that Muslims are more. But in that Southwest, they are not. Whereas this is not true. And that is the source of conflict, that we are more, Muslims are more, even in the Southwest. And therefore, we deserve to be guided, to be directed, to live our life in the best way of Allah, which is the Sharia. So the parliament has their own way. Ijtihad is one of the potent sources of Islamic law, apart from Quran and their hadith, which is the primary. In Islamic jurisprudence, we say all the others, ijma, qiyas, and the rest of them, are secondary. So they will delve into the Quran and their hadith when the moment they could not find the actual solution, actual resolution, or actual facts there, they will now resort to qiyas, ijma, ijtihad, and the rest of them. It's allowed. We have been doing it in our own daily life. So that is the.
Thank you. Thank you for the detailed answer. Dr. Kazeem, was when we read about Sharia law in Nigeria, we often hear about some non-state groups trying to enforce their own version of Sharia on others by the brutal force of violence and brutal, imposition by their own will. We have groups like Boko Haram and others who are trying to impose their version. Of course, this creates a bad impression on non-Muslims, but also around the world. This is happening in other countries like Afghanistan in the name of Sharia. Such violence and such repression, for instance, against the girls' education have been carried out. And when this message is out, and people then will equate Sharia with this kind of violence even if it's by non-state groups. I'm wondering, what is your explanation, and if you can throw more light on the current situation with respect to this the non-state violence in Nigeria in particular. But any thoughts are welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. You have said rightly that some people, some groups, some non-state actors are hiding, deceptively hiding under Islam, hiding under the fact that they are Muslims by name anyway, want to foist on other groups their own function of Sharia, their own adulterated Sharia. Yes, I'm aware, and it's happening. You mentioned Boko Haram, for instance. Yes, Boko Haram. Boko Haram is, at the initial stage when they started, they were saying that, look, they are Muslims. They want full Sharia. This, that. That's how they started. But several years after, we now know that as of today, Boko Haram are not Muslims. There are so many names that are Christian with them. There are so many people, the commander, who are Christian in their names. So they can't claim any religion. So they use religion because it started from the north. They use religion to be able to deceive people and have members. Now they have members. We now know that it's a strict political group, seeking for the emancipation of these members from political, dictates of some people they didn't like. The opposition will come and set up one parallel army and the rest of them. So Boko Haram, to me, let's start from instance. Boko Haram. The meaning in Arabic is book, is Aram. I mean, so Quran itself and most of the fatwa, most of the sunnah, most of the sahih of the prophet, are they not books which we read, which we believe that these are books from Almighty Allah, ordained by Him to guide human being? Talk less of technology. They now extend it to the fact that television should not be used, radio should not be listened to, and they are using walkie-talkie. They are using security devices to call themselves and to rise their members to action whenever they want to cause havoc. So Boko Haram is already known that they are not Muslims. They are Rabu Rausa. And because of what they stand for, they only use religion to come into the existence for the purpose of deceiving so many people. The large majority of people in the north are Muslims. So if they didn't come as a Muslim, imagine the leader of the Boko Haram calling himself a pastor. You can see how people will be very fierce in fighting them. But because they call themselves Muslims, they had ways of hibernating with people, dodging here and there and deceiving people, convincing them to join them. And that was the reason why they are not Muslim. We don't recognize them as a Muslim. The government have come out openly. The anti-terrorist acts that have come have nullified them. They have banned them they have nicknamed them as a terrorist group. So they can't be. And that's exactly why even some governors came out in the north to say that they are spoiling, they are spoiling, or they are how to destroy the code of Islam by calling themselves Muslim, because they are not. So those non-state actors or non-state organizations that are coming to force Sharia on other people are not doing Sharia. So how can you, if you want to do equity, you must come with equity. Or if you want equity, you must do equity. And they have not come with Sharia. They have the pictures to do that. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Are there any groups like Hisma groups which are trying to enforce Islamic law in other than Boko Haram? Are there any other non-state groups which have been active in social and public sphere?
Yes, they are trying to suppress them. As I speak with you, in one of the states, I think in Zamfara, the Islamic terrorists and the Boko Haram, they are now fighting each other. to take the control of a village. They're not killing themselves. Not the Nigerian army now. They're not killing themselves to say their own Sharia is superior to the other one, and they call themselves Islamic terrorists, Islamic this and that. So ISWAP, well, we have them in scattered group, around the border of Nigerian border countries. But at least they have mingled together, and the Nigerian army, Nigerian military force is facing them equally now, because we now identify them as this destroyer, terrorist. They can't use the religion again.
Yeah. I would like to give you an example from Pakistan once again, and that is because we have faced similar violent groups
Yes.
in the name of Sharia. So, and I would like to ask a question, but let me first explain to you the rise of a movement which was known as Tehreek-e-Nafaz Shariat-e Muhammadi, which is like a movement for implementation
Yeah, for
of
Muhammad.
Shariat-e Muhammadi, right? So this was a group which emerged in a northern part of Pakistan about 20 years ago, and they became very popular, and they started conducting their own courts. Initially, they were not violent, but they established their own state, uh, not in a formal sense of a state, but state institution like court of law. And they were claiming that, look, people are generally fed up of criminal justice system in Pakistan. I don't know about Nigeria. I'd like to know your thoughts on that. But people are so fed up because the courts takes years and years in resolving the disputes, and there are lawyers and judges who would not give a verdict on the basis of law for decades in some extreme cases. So people are fed up, and then some alternate group comes up and say that, okay, come to us, we will resolve it amicably, uh, and they come to them. So they'll go to them, informal courts, and they become legitimate because people are going to them with their disputes, and they are going because there is a larger governance failure in the country, larger failure of rule of law, and the criminal justice system is corrupt and totally not trustworthy. And so that gives these groups, these extreme groups, a space to operate, and then they gradually occupy the space, the geography. So that is what happened in Pakistan. Then they occupied, and then there was a like a war, not a war, but a battle between Pakistan armed forces and that group, and ultimately that group was attacked and then thrown away, and the peace was restored. That piece of territory was restored, and that was then normalized, but it took some years in the whole process. But many people say that these groups thrive on that failure of governance. Would you say the same thing in Nigeria, or it's a different mechanism or different reason altogether?
Well, it's almost the same thing, especially when such group, started in a predominantly Muslim large population. If you look at some Christian large population states too, they do not feign to be Muslims. They come in another color. In Nigeria, just like we said in Pakistan, yes, they came like people who love the people more than the state itself, and people start coming to them. They started gathering momentum, started gathering space, land mass, and they create, units in the bush. But because of the failing Nigerian state, the failing government, we cannot say it's failed now, it's failing government. Before the Jonathan administration left Nigeria, they have taken over more than 2/3 of a state. 2/3 of the state, remaining leaving just 1/3 of that state to Nigeria. They have fostered their flag, their anthem is already on, and so on and so forth before the Jonathan administration left.
Because which year was that? Which year was that?
That's between 2011, 2012.
Okay, recent, quite recent. Okay.
Very, very recently. Boko Haram started around 2006, thereabout, with bow and arrow. Bow and arrow. And possibly charms. But later, by 2009, 2010, they started using bombs and guns. And that was the reason why he said the opposition raised them to be able to counter those in government because they want to hijack power at all costs. And that is the reason why they came in. And the moment they came in, through the predominantly large population Muslims, they must feign to be a Muslim, or else people will not accept them. And that was the reason why they now took time to adopt what they call their own breed of Sharia, and started, cunningly now, mischievously, putting people together to raise an army. When they raised army, they now come in full force. We have another set of group called Al-Zazaki. That one is predominantly in Kaduna. Al-Zazaki, is an Islamic fundamentalist. And when they preach this and preach that, I say, where do you see this? Is this in accordance with the Quran or in accordance with the Sunnah of the Prophet? When you don't see that one there, then stop. They didn't want to stop. They started forcing people to accept them, forcing people to give them accommodation in the town. Then government took over and started fighting them in the state, in Kaduna State. So there are so many of them. The question is that what kind of Sharia are they putting forward? We recognize, some of us who are researchers in Islamic jurisprudence know that their own fashion of Sharia is no Sharia at all. It is a devil Sharia, if there's anything like that. So it's almost like that. It's almost the same thing with what happened in Pakistan. But the Nigerian state is now facing them, and the people are now rejecting them. And that's exactly why we are winning the war, in a way. Thank you.
And now it's like maybe one of the last question from my side. And I don't know if Noor, would you like to come in? But my question is that you talked about people, Dr. Kazeem. You mentioned people are rejecting these violent groups. And when we talk about people, of course, we have to talk about politics, democratic processes, political parties. And we have seen recently in Europe, for instance, in US, in elections, kind of far right movement is there. And we have seen many, extreme groups have emerged. In recent elections in Germany, for instance, the AfD got highest number of votes, although not forming majority, but still they gained a lot in terms of their following. So in Nigeria, I'm wondering if you would like to educate us about the political role of political parties, and whether there are any political parties which enjoy religious, like they are religio-political parties, like in Pakistan, Jamaat-e-Islami, in Malaysia we have PAS, and others. They are religious political parties, so it means that they are bringing people to follow them on the basis of their adherence to, or their claim that they are more Islamic, and they are going to enforce Sharia if they are in power. But they are coming through democratic means. They are not sort of threatening to take power from the state on base of violence. So other than that Boko Haram, that of course we condemn, are there any such trends in Nigerian society in a political sense, where you see rise or not, a fall of this sentiment in the wider
Yes,
political spectrum?
yes, yes. We can trace such also in Nigeria. We can. You see, when it's come to a political party, it's a party system. When it's come to democratic system, a sustaining democratic system or a sustainable democratic system depends largely on political parties. Political parties are the one to contest election and to rule and to govern. And when they do not govern in the interest of the people that put them there, it turns to something else. Our problem in Nigeria is that most of the political parties there's not what we call, there's a lack of party discipline amongst them. Party discipline or the lack of democratic culture, which we know that is lacking in most of them. Although in Nigeria we don't have a party that can call itself a religious party. No, we don't. But some of the leaders of political party, some will go to mosque because they are Muslim and they need votes from Muslims. They will go to mosque for their campaigns, having meetings with the clerics. Some will now say it is churches, so they will be moving from one church to the other to preach for them, to support them. And they don't register as a religious party because the Nigerian constitution does not allow registration of parties on the religious basis. So they now register party only to use religion as a cover-up. They will now be working for one religion or the other underground. And when those people now see this, they like to challenge such orthodoxy. And we have them. Let me tell you one fact. There's some fact that I imagine now from United States. You said USAID. This is a non-governmental organization that supports AIDS in Africa. That particular organization was used by Obama to set up Boko Haram in Nigeria, to be able to topple the government that he doesn't like. These are the facts. Within the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's in the news now. That when you heard of it. When Trump now came and stopped that no foreign aid through USAID and everything is now banned, some quarters in Nigeria were jubilating. We now say, why are you jubilating? They now give us those facts. Why don't you say this before now? They said they cannot say it because they are afraid of what will come after them. I must tell you now, it was because of the ban in the supply of arms and ammunition to these Boko Haram and Islamic terrorists, which was deliberately sponsored by Obama against Nigeria, that is now emerging as facts. And now, people are now calling on government, the Tinubu government now, to take action and ask questions. Because the facts from Jonathan government, Boko Haram started with Jonathan and did not help with Jonathan. And Jonathan was saying something then that 2 days before the strike, the major strike of the Boko Haram by kidnapping Chibos girls, about over 200 Chibos girls. Just 2 weeks before then, all the governors in northern states in Nigeria had meeting at the White House with Obama, traveled without permission of the president, because the president that was in office, they didn't like him. And 2 weeks after, there was this major strike. That's the first major strike of the Boko Haram, kidnapping more than 200 girls and took them into the bush. And the government of Jonathan was unable to free any one of them till he left office. Only for Obama's wife and some member of the cabinet of Obama carrying the flag of free our girls now. supporting some NGO in Nigeria that Jonathan is a weak government. He must be sent away because he could not free the Chibos girls from the enclave of the Boko Haram and this and this and that. How could Obama's wife be so interested in the girls in Nigeria to be able to carry the banner, free our girls now, leading a demonstration in America against Nigeria as at that time? So all these facts coming out now are, an indication to, supporting the fact that you said is actually supporting, and they have cut the pipe now. In the last, since that one stopped, since Trump stopped who said aid to Nigeria, we have not seen Boko Haram striking. There have not been any reports of Boko Haram or Islamic terrorists, striking or killing or maiming people. Since that time, we have not seen them. So, I mean, it's hard to it that foreign bodies, through their agents here, are sponsoring most of these people. And when they know where they are coming from, they adopt the religion to be able to deceive the majority of the people. So it is because of lack of good marksmanship in terms of the state failure of our political parties and leadership that Boko Haram is flexing measures. Thank you.
Wow, this is quite revealing. I'm sure this has come to a big shock to Nigerian people, and thank you for sharing your candid thoughts on this. And I get that you are saying that U.S. government through USAID use that aid process for intervention in the domestic environment, and they even directly supported terrorist groups like Boko Haram. This is what is coming out in the press in Nigeria. This is what you are saying.
Yeah. Yes, okay. That is exactly what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, most of the quotations and the pronouncements in the social media, I will send them to you later.
There's a supplementary, there is a supplementary question asked by our friend. A question asked by our friend Mustafa Raji from Algeria, and he asked you a question about Boko Haram because you mentioned to them, you referred to them as not Muslims, and he's saying, are you making a takfiri approach of jihadi groups because you said they are non-Muslims? Would you like to respond to that?
Yes, I would like to respond to that by saying that the formulation, the establishment of Boko Haram itself is not rooted in Islam. It's not rooted in Islam. When you started and said you can write your letter instead of the ink, tadal, that you use, the ink and the pen, that first pen, you now use blood to write Arabic. That is how they started. You use blood to write Arabic in a paper to show them that, look, Arabic uses, Islam uses blood when Islam actually preaches respect for human life. That's one. Secondly, the Boko Haram, book, is the Hausa name for Boko. Hausa name, Hausa Boko is, the literal meaning is book. Haram means forbidden, something that is forbidden. Book reading is forbidden. Don't let anybody give you any constitution to read. But how do you now circulate the fatwa to these people? It's through the book, through text. You use social media to send videos that you want to kill this set of people now. If the people did not come and pay ransom, you show it in the television, you show it in the video, you send it out. Are you not using technology and you said all these books written and the rest of them are haram? That is not allowed in Islam. That is the first place where we got them. That's these people are suspects. They cannot be advocating Islam and say reading when Islam itself under the Shariah, you seek knowledge even to the farthest place of China. I mean, that is what the imams will tell us in jurisprudence, that you can, that at no matter age, you seek to continue to seek knowledge. So what they're saying now is that when book is an haram, that means seeking knowledge is an haram. And that is how we got to know them. And after due investigation, we now saw that they're only using Islam as a cover up. They cannot, and they are not Muslims. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. I really, I think it was a very sobering discussion with you, and you brought to us an update situation. You shared the historical knowledge about the evolution of Sharia, and you also explained the current social and political context of this contest between Sharia and law, and from the outside world, it is perceived differently. But I think you helped us understand the situation much better, and I thank you for that, really. And I hand it over back to my colleague Noor to close the webinar, or if she wants to have any comments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali and Dr. Kazeem. I think definitely something that I think about is how Sharia is something that's so heavily contested by so many different competing groups with different agendas. It's definitely an issue where I'm from, Malaysia. It's a very sensational and politicized topic. So something that I would love to see in the future is probably more transnational discussions and dialogue about Sharia law. And inshallah, Ireland can facilitate such discussions in the future. But for now, we would like to thank everyone who participated in this webinar. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate all the insights and knowledge that was shared today. This recording can be replayed and rewatched on YouTube. It will be available shortly, inshallah. And in case you have not, do follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well as LinkedIn. We are active there, and we do publicize our future webinars and other programs that we may have planned for the coming year. So with that, thank you, and we hope to see you for our next session.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.